here with Suzanne Duncan. She's the financial markets industry leader with the IBM Institute for Business Value. Suzanne's just presented the results of the largest ever global research study on the investor trust gap, and I think it's caused something of sort of shockwaves through the audience with some of the findings. Do you want to start with there were sort of 5 principal points that you found?
Sure. So I think the key points, one of the things that we did, and just a couple points about the methodology, we surveyed about 2,755 industry participants, which included end investors. It included the provider view. And we also spent an awful lot of time with the governments and the regulators to understand their points of view, given how much they are influencing decisions these days on behalf of the industry.
This was global?
So 1/3 Americas, 1/3 EMEA, and 1/3 Asia Pacific. And one of the things that we did, we kind of set out to answer 4 basic questions about the future of the industry. Easy to say, difficult to answer. But the first is, what are the largest drivers of change in the industry? So here we spent a lot of time looking at forces such as fee pressure, commoditization, but then also importantly, what will the future of regulation look like? The second question is probably the most disturbing to us. This question came from the industry who wanted us to answer for them what their investors will actually pay them for. As basic of a question as that, we found that the industry was disconnected on average about 80% of time from their end clients. And then the third question, we looked at the competitive landscape in terms of how that will evolve. And then the last is, we really did want to set forth recommendations to make it actionable and say what can firms do today to be best positioned for the future. So a couple of the main findings, that came out. The first, probably the most surprising finding, had to do with all of the discussions we had on the government front. So surprising to us, the governments articulated a shared goal, which was very encouraging. We started the research process, and this research study, I should mention, has been about 18 months in the works. Thanks to IBM for continuing to invest in our funds. So from a government perspective, they shared the goal, which is to balance stability with innovation. And we kept hearing the same thing about how important it is to protect financial innovation, knowing that it can end up adding value to GDP. But surprising to us in another sense is that although they state this lofty goal, we don't see their execution in the legislation actually matching up. And we're afraid that it's going to overshoot on the stability side at the expense of healthy forms of financial innovation. And therefore, the consequence may be, as they go through all of this in the regulatory agenda, that we're going to end up creating regulatory arbitrage and regulatory fragmentation, and then another opaque shadow system may be created. So those are some of the findings, around the government front.
So tell me about some of the findings from the end investor group.
Yeah, it's interesting. One of our main summary points is that the industry must learn how to deliver on its brand promises. And we don't mean this like marketing fluff. We legitimately researched what the brands stand for in the industry globally, and they stand for 3 things. The first is client centricity, that's first and foremost. The second is flexibility, and then the third is stability. And then when we asked the executives running these companies, 67% said that they failed to deliver across each of those brand promises. And when you get underneath the covers here, we did a lot of survey work about the end investor, and we wanted to understand the investor. We did both institutional and retail investor. We asked them a question. This is all related to what we surfaced as a trust gap. A big trust gap exists. We asked them the question, to what extent do you believe that your provider is acting in your best interest, or is the provider acting in the provider's best interest at your expense? And nearly 70% of investors believe that their provider is acting in the provider's best interest at their expense. And this is nothing new. We do fund surveys every year, and we say, who do you trust more, your auto car salesman or your financial advisor, your lawyer or your asset manager? And so even pre-crisis, what came out is that auto car salesman was number 1, lawyer was number 2, and all the way at the bottom of the list, and this is even pre-crisis, were the financial services intermediaries and investment management industry. So the trust gap clearly was widened by the financial crisis, but most disturbing to us out of all of that, we sort of expected there to be trust issues in all of this, but most disturbing to us, we even asked the providers, do you agree with that statement? Do you agree? And it was nearly 70% strongly agreed that they're acting in their own best interest, not necessarily in those of their clients.
So they know there's a problem, and then that would be what's going to happen next. Will they do something about it? So tell me what predictions you arrived at the end of the report.
Yeah, so there were sort of a twofold recommendation. Number one is that the industry has to learn how to get underneath and deliver what the clients will pay for. So not what they want lots of things, but what do they need and what will they pay for? And so we found that, I mentioned they were disconnected 80% of the time. The industry answered all about the product, everything like best in breed product offerings, one-stop shop product offerings. But then when we asked the investor, what are you actually willing to pay for, had nothing to do with the product. It were things like unbiased, high quality advice, superior client service excellence, and convenience. So the recommendation here, for any one provider that can actually deliver what the clients will pay for, can charge a premium and actually end up increasing its profitability by 5%. So that's, recommendation number one, is start to eliminate these disconnects, listen to the investor, and actually what are they willing to pay for. Recommendation number two is that the industry has to resolve what we call this business model identity crisis, where what we found is that 80%, when we asked what keeps you awake at night, always our personal favorite question, 80% stated business model uncertainty. They don't know which models will work in the future. And as the industry, and this is actually a good thing, as the industry goes through this self-reflection process, it will start to figure out what it wants to look like in the future. So two things will happen: industry consolidation and industry unbundling. Even though it sounds like that's a contradiction, those two things will happen, but they will happen differently. The biggest difference in terms of, we've always gone through industry consolidation and all of this. What's different is that this industry happens to be the most fragmented. Top 10 control only 26% of assets under management. We actually expect that to change. But the consolidation will take place in a more, and this sounds like, again, a contradiction, but in a more specialized manner. So firms can still be very large, multiple products, multiple clients, multiple geographies, but the key is to actually focus and specialize to a much greater extent.
And you found that performance is better?
Performance is better. And
yeah,
exactly.
You don't sacrifice performance by being
You
more
don't
focused.
sacrifice.
Yeah.
And in fact, performance, they are able to deliver ROEs higher by 5.7% on average, the more specialized organizations. And they're going to need it, given the lower return environment.
Well, I'm glad we've got someone to show us the way. So thank you, Suzanne, who frightened everybody here, but did show them the way forward. Thank you, Suzanne Duncan.
Thank you very much.